Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
President Trump and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are diametrically opposite in nearly every way, except perhaps for their shared home state of New York and their social media dominance. But now, there may be another thing that binds the two. A federal appeals panel ruling on Tuesday found that Mr. Trump, a Republican, has been violating the Constitution by blocking people from following him on Twitter because they criticized or mocked him.
The president violated? Never mind. I haven't even been introduced yet. Go ahead. That one got me.
That ruling is now the basis of two lawsuits filed against Miss Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat, accusing her of blocking people because of their opposing political stances. So you've got the left and the right, the president and a new insurgent Democrat being criticized through the same lawsuit for blocking those who might criticize them on Twitter. We're going to look at the details of this, but why you care is pretty straightforward. The First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. But no conversation on the Constitution, free speech, Democrats and Republicans could be complete without
your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
You got to love that First Amendment. Makes everybody uncomfortable. I want to say what I want to say. I want to say what I want to say. Oh, you get to talk back to me? You can't do that. No, I just want to say what I want to say.
You can't do that.
I love it. Love the First Amendment. Drives people in power nuts. That's my whole goal in life. Make them uncomfortable.
Large section of the opening monologue was from the New York Times, and we're giving the New York Times a little credit here. They released both of these articles almost at the same time, Lance. Both of them on July 10th of 2019. One entitled Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is sued for blocking critics on Twitter. The other one entitled Trump and Twitter Together Forever. And so what we're looking at is the court ruling, which said, this is, by the way, a 2018 district court ruling that said the president has tried to do an end runaround of the First Amendment in blocking critics, noting that public officials could not turn off people, quote, from an otherwise open online dialogue because they expressed views which the official disagrees with, end quote.
Because if you're giving opinions on the government, right, then it's covered by the First Amendment.
Correct.
We're not talking about personal. You're talking about the government. And anyway, just duh. You know, I mean, it's like, come on, people. But what I found out, though, was it that article or the other one? Because you have the hard copies where it talks about they asked politicians on both sides of the aisle and other political organizations. And this is something that happens on both sides. We like to talk about, you people that attack us all the time, that we never bring up the opposing side, or we're always falling on the liberal side. Here's something where both sides are violating the First Amendment.
Correct. The article explains blocking on social media is done across political party lines. In 2017, for example, ProPublica sent letters asking all 50 governors and 22 federal agencies whether they had blocked people on social media. 5 Republican governors, 4 Democrats, and 4 agencies responded with information about people that they had blocked. Most agencies and more than half of the governors did not respond.
But on the 4th of July, they'll all give their stump speech and talk about how we protect the Constitution and we believe in the First Amendment. Except when you're criticizing me.
Except when you're criticizing me.
Or my policies.
So the couple things we want to look at here, Lance, let's start with, at first glance, right, this ruling and what it will mean seems pretty much like a good thing, right?
You would think so.
Okay.
Right? Freedom of speech.
Right.
You get to say something. I have a chance to rebut, and you can rebuttal my rebut, and back and forth.
One of the tenets, though, of social media has been this ability to, at least to an extent, control who you interact with, right?
Mm-hmm. But no, wait a minute, I have a question.
Yeah.
Since you're the knowledgeable one and I'm not. Once you're out on the World Wide Web, don't you give all that up because I don't even want people to know about me, but because I've done things in public and a newspaper or radio or somebody has covered it, I'm automatically on the World Wide Web and I've lost my anonymity. Correct? So
to an extent.
So why would that be a basis of the belief that you have, that you can block people and not let people listen to you or say? Because as my understanding of the internet is, you're out there whether you want to be out there or not. So why would you think you have the right to stop other people from commenting or following? If you can answer that first before,
right.
Or I don't want to interrupt, but that, I don't understand that, why people would feel that way.
So let's take Facebook, for example. Okay. The basis of how you interact with a lot of the information on Facebook is who you've chosen to be, and I'm doing air quotes here, friends.
I'm familiar with that with my wife. I know that you can block people because you get tired of their pictures or their comments.
You can unfriend them.
Right.
Which would mean that you no longer see necessarily that you no longer see updates on them.
But they don't know that you've done that.
Well, they don't get notified that you've done that. There are ways to figure it out.
I got you.
There's nothing that you can run across that says you've been blocked, per se, or you've been banned. But what you will see is that, for example, you no longer can get to certain things. So just hypothetically.
Oh, so like if my wife blocks somebody and then if she posts pictures, they may not be able to get to the pictures that she's posting.
Correct.
And if that happens and they're knowledgeable, then they know that she's not wanting to see
them.
Okay.
And that's not
roundabout way to get there.
Yes. Right. A very crude understanding, because you get into the difference between unfriending somebody, unfollowing somebody, blocking somebody.
Yeah. Way over my pay grade.
The point is, Facebook in particular, of the various social media platforms, has instituted a large number of measures that give you a certain level of control over how public information is. So when you go to put a post out there, for example, you can make a choice about, is this, again, air quotes here, public? In other words, anybody can see it. Anybody can read it. Or is this friends and friends of friends? Or is this only friends? Or is this only me? Okay.
So that's where they get the sense of controlling who gets to see it.
Correct. And there are similar protocols on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, so forth. You can to an extent attempt to control who sees it. But for example, Lance, that doesn't prevent somebody. So say that you've been blocked, right?
Okay.
On Facebook by somebody. That doesn't prevent somebody else from taking a picture of what somebody said and sending it to you, or them posting it themselves. So there is a very limited level of control.
But there's that thinking out there that people
the illusion of control,
think that they're being private.
Yeah. And I mean, to an extent, like you could, if you had a page, if you ban somebody from your page, they cannot come onto your page and comment anymore. They can't see your posts from you. Somebody else could share them.
Unless they would create an anonymous account and then they could come in and do that.
Yes.
And then I'd have to block the anonymous account.
And Facebook, for example, has been working on eliminating, fake accounts, requiring a real name,
But see, here's one I was talking to you about.
But yeah, it's not foolproof.
Okay. I think I was talking to you this yesterday and kind of along this way. I'm not on Facebook or anything else, but I was up at Kent State and I was talking to some family members about the events of Kent State, May 4th, 1970. And while I was doing that, which is something I've done for many, many years when we used to have basketball camp up there. But my daughter, unbeknownst to me, was filming me on Facebook Live. I don't know if filming is the right word. And then I get filming. I get back to where we're staying. My wife goes, "Did you know that your daughter?" I'm like, well, I knew she had her phone out. So I figured, she goes, "Oh no, she posted that. And you've had 400 people come in and watch you talk about Kent State." I'm like, don't I have any say so on that? I mean, I'm walking around out here, are there any privacy? She goes, no. If you're, so again, that's why
First Amendment.
Right. But that's my conundrum when you say people feel like they have the right to limit. It's like, I don't. I feel like, cause I'm living and breathing the internet, Facebook, Twitter, all of them, Snapchat, whatever, however they all work, you're open to all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There is no such thing as privacy in the internet world.
Then we, though, have to look at another section of the Constitution, right? In regards to privacy, is Amendment 5. And we'll look at that here in a second.
Well, anyway, I didn't mean to take us, hopefully I didn't take us off base.
No, I think it's
Those
relevant.
are just questions. I mean,
how it works. And so the point here, and this is where, we say, because at first glance, truly, when I saw these, I had heard some stuff about this yesterday when this came out, on the Trump and AOC. AOC is the abbreviation, for those who may not know, commonly used for Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, since she has a relatively long name. And that's also what she tweets at, which is at AOC. And Trump tweets at Real Donald Trump. So they both have official government accounts. And see, this, Lance, to me, is where it
gets an interesting argument.
Right. This is kind of where the nuance comes into play. The president and AOC use what amounts to their personal Twitter accounts to communicate with people. They both have, for example, the president has at POTUS, okay, which is technically the official account for the president of the United States. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also has, like everybody in Congress, at Rep, and I think it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You'll have to double check that one, Mr. Producer. I don't know if that's what her official handle is, but they all share a similar handle, just like whoever the president is always at POTUS.
Always gets POTUS.
Right. It goes from president to president. On the POTUS one, though, it says the president of the United States tweets at Real Donald Trump. So
that's not just that he doesn't use it.
Right.
He uses it to direct people to his personal one.
And frequently,
you're not to your question yet, but
I know.
Go ahead.
And
I'll let you pose the question.
And frequently at POTUS and at Rep, the two official accounts frequently retweet, in other words, share from the personal accounts things that the president or AOC say. So,
following you.
This is where it gets, in my estimation, a little bit hairy, because the ruling seems nice at first glance, but then if I ban Lance from seeing what I've posted on my personal page, have I infringed on his right to freedom of information? The ruling doesn't address that. It addresses public officials. But I could see how somebody at some point is going to try to make an argument that the information that I was sharing was pertinent to public knowledge, much like Lance was. I mean, you were in a public place, right, when your daughter was filming this.
We were on the campus of a state university.
So the assumption is, even if you didn't want to be filmed, you were out in public, in the public domain, so to speak.
Yep.
So you don't have the right to
privacy,
to control the distribution of what you've
I wasn't
said.
In my own home talking to somebody.
Right.
I was out in public.
Yeah.
Right.
Now then that would be different. If somebody came in and you had not given them permission, you were on private property somewhere and they said, no, we're not, that's not okay. But then that's where this comes into play. Twitter is private property, just to be clear. It is a private organization on private servers, physical servers. Okay. Forget, because everybody talks to the cloud, no. These are physical computers in a building.
No way.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where all the data is. For anybody who's unclear about this.
For you new listeners, I'm fascinated by the cloud concept.
The data
this
exists.
Is the real stuff.
Right.
Okay.
On physical devices in a physical building owned by a private company.
No. Who owns Twitter?
Twitter.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's traded on the stock market.
I mean, does the mouse own Twitter?
Shareholders.
Or
no.
Google or Apple?
Just Twitter.
Twitter owns Twitter?
Twitter owns
It's
Twitter.
not controlled by some big conglomerate?
Not yet.
I got you. Okay.
There's been some attempts.
That's neat. All right, that's good to know.
So is Facebook's the same thing. Facebook is Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook also owns, though, like we talked about before.
Oh, okay. Facebook owns multiple platforms.
Facebook owns Facebook. Facebook owns Instagram. Facebook owns WhatsApp. So
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
Don't know WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
All right.
It's not. I would say it's not as popular in the U.S. as it is in other countries because it's a free messaging service. So it's more popular in places where access to reliable cellular service is not always as prevalent.
Okay.
Or if you want to communicate with people in other countries, but you don't want to pay fees to send like a text,
right?
This sends it over the internet, so it's free. That's kind of its rise.
Well, you mean if somebody's traveling and I want to text them and they're in another country, I don't get free text?
It depends. I mean, that's based on your, I don't know. That's your
that's
phone
on your
plan.
program? I got
I don't know. You got to check with.
Oh, they can charge me on that? Dang.
So the point in all this, though, is it's kind of blurry because
I see that.
Because Twitter's a private company, you know? So what if they say, right, tomorrow, Lance, well, we don't like what the president says, so he's not allowed to be on here anymore.
But see, I was going to bring that up, and I didn't know if that was coming in for the second half of the show or not. But the article states that Twitter the company has rules, and the president consistently violates the rules. But Twitter allows him to violate the rules where they would take off other people because they bring so much business because the president's comments bring so much business to Twitter.
In fairness, I also think they fear the possibility of a court case on free speech. The reason that tech companies have
Twitter basically says no hate speech, no saying bad things about people, no doing, that's in the company policy. So
Correct.
If they're a private company, they're not following their own policy. They shouldn't allow the president or AOC on the site if they're using the site to attack people. You can attack people using another site, but Twitter's policy, according to the article, what I understood, is not to let people do that. But they're choosing, according to the article, they're choosing not to kick the president and AOC off of Twitter because it's bringing them so many followers and so many people are accessing their Twitter account or creating a Twitter account, which then I guess makes them money somehow.
I think the bigger thing that Twitter is afraid of and the other large social media companies are afraid of in these situations, you know, when they ban somebody like Lance, right? And they kick you off for violating the terms of service.
Which they never have. I have a Twitter account. I have never been banned.
You haven't been banned.
Yep.
When they do that, the repercussions are probably minimal.
Very minimal.
If there are any at all, right?
The 5 people that follow me maybe get upset.
It says
but
you signed this contract, you violated the rules, and you're off of here. You know, fine. I mean, right? Pretty cut and dry. But now with this ruling, we have this, you don't have, Mr. Trump, Miss AOC, you don't have the right to remove people whom you disagree with. Does that then lend itself to an extension of Twitter when it's a public official? You don't have the right, even though your terms of service say so, to get rid of someone you don't agree with. Mm-hmm. You know, now you could say, well, their terms of service aren't opinionated. Well, sure they are. They're subjective. You know, they've come up with a set of rules that they believe are the right rules. And I could see a court case.
But it's a private company. I can do that.
And that's why this is, in my estimation, a very scary, slippery slope. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying this conversation that Lance and I have, I think is really important because it opens up this whole, can Twitter remove Trump? I mean, if it wanted to, if it said he's in violation of terms and we're removing him, what happens? I mean, is then there a court case against Twitter that says you can't because you're so important?
Because he's a private citizen or because he's the president?
Because he's the president. Because the court case, right, is saying you can't block people because you are a public official and people have a right to what you're saying. They have the right to know and the right to criticize.
But the old style in your hands newspaper and magazines, they have the right. They don't have to cover the president just because they're the president.
They haven't had to in the past. That's why I'm saying this, to me, we have to really look at. That's what we're talking about. But before we continue on this, it's important, Lance, we take a moment. A good, important update for people too. Thestateofus.org. Okay. So real simple now to get directly to all the ways to listen, which you can find at thestateofus.org. So if you pull up your phone and you go to thestateofus.org, there's all the different apps you can listen in. You just tap on it and it opens it in that app.
Does that mean do I still get to keep saying that at the end of the show, or do we don't need to say that anymore?
Yeah, you'll still get to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though it's right there on the site?
Right. You can also, we're going to start putting links to the stuff that we reference in the show there, so that if you want to look at these articles, for example, from today, you can go there, you can take a look at them, read them for yourself. And we're going to have some videos that we'll be referencing in upcoming episodes. We'll be putting them there so that you can take a look. Sometimes it's just not practical for us to provide everything that we'd like to provide you during the show. So this is going to be a resource too, where you can engage in another way.
I like it.
And it's not there at the time this episode goes up, but in the coming weeks, we'll put a thing too, so that you can subscribe via email and get notified whenever a new episode is available.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For us email people.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. Yeah. I think the host of the newly revitalized True Sports podcast, made that mistake in recording the other day of, inviting people to connect via email.
He did, which I was excited about.
I know
because I like email.
You were thrilled. Wait a minute. No, you don't like email. You just like it. You like it more than the rest of the digital landscape.
All right.
Or you hate it less than the rest of tech. So Lance, we're talking about all this Twitter stuff, this First Amendment stuff.
Yeah.
And that goes back to us as an organization, right? What are we trying to do at True Chat?
You mean our mission statement? Is it time to read the mission statement?
I don't know.
Or say the mission statement?
You think this is the right time?
It kind of feels like it.
Okay.
Right?
You should go for it.
All right. Well, the State of Us is part of True Chat, and True Chat's mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And we try to do that on at least a twice weekly basis.
We try to.
And if we don't, though, if you don't think we are, is there a place where they can complain about us?
Yes,
there is. Okay.
They can email again, right?
See, you're going to email. See, I don't care what you use, you got to email.
They can email.
Email is big.
Ethics at truechat.org. Ethics at truechat.org. We do take those seriously. The ethics committee will take a look at it, and if we're out of line, they'll get us back in line.
We've had people had their hands slapped before.
That's right. Rare. I mean, I think because
we're pretty good at following the mission.
The ethics committee has been around for 4 years, and I think there have been maybe 2 cases. Did you break your pen?
I remember 2. I did. I just broke my pen.
Okay.
I didn't want to take away from the show.
Okay.
All right. But yes, I did break my pen, but it still works. I broke the clip off.
We're going to look at the repercussions of this ruling that the president can't block critics and what it could mean for private companies in relation to public officials. But before we do that, Lance, we got to take a quick moment to hear from one of our sponsors. Welcome back. Trump and Twitter together forever. Real interesting title too. I think if you at first glance, it's like, okay, we're being a little cheeky, right? But now think about the repercussions. Now the title has a little bit different meaning. Trump and Twitter together forever.
Right.
A court ruling that the president can't block critics means the platform is even less likely to boot him for breaking its rules. There's a couple different ways to look at that. Lance highlighted before. One is maybe they don't want to get rid of him because of the potential revenue, right? You have this very active presence. It brings a lot of users to Twitter to hear what the president has to say. So there's the money side of we want to keep the president here even though he violates his rules. There's also the other side of this more elusive tech community, the big giants, right?
Right.
Talking to each other and saying, now if you kick the president off, or if you try to, do we invite a court ruling against Twitter for removing someone because in Twitter's opinion, they don't like the way the president does business. And now the president, as the president, not as Donald Trump, but because he's the president, has the right to be on Twitter. So now have we infringed on the rights of private companies if we go down that road? And does your right to freedom of speech trump the right of private organizations to craft their own message? This is something we've talked about in the past.
See, I don't think so. I mean, if private company is a private company, then they have the right to dictate it. Then I can choose not to buy their services or to go into their business or buy their products or whatever. That's called a boycott. But if you're private, that's what private means.
So then I
shouldn't be able to force you to be open. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, that's the way I've always thought of it, is that, I'm thinking of
which is me too.
I'm always thinking of it in the case of a golf course. It's a public course, so you got to let anybody on to play. Mm-hmm. But if I want to open up a private course, then you can limit who's in it. Mm-hmm. But then I can stand outside your establishment and let everybody know this is what you stand for.
Sure.
And then nobody
stand
wants
on
to
public property.
Right. And so that's all part of the give and take of privacy versus First Amendment versus peacefully assembling and all that kind of stuff. That's how that all plays out.
So, and then I've been on the same page, right? People who have listened.
I'm just saying that's where I've been.
Know that
so now
that's
how
kind
does
of where
this
Lance and I are
That's
at.
what I was opening up for you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how does this apply to that stance that I basically have formed over the last 50 years?
So Twitter is a private company, right?
Mm-hmm.
i.e. it is a private, so to speak, platform. It's governed by its own policy. The president has an account, right? He is a member, so to speak, of Twitter.
Okay.
Right? I mean, he has an account on Twitter. Why doesn't he have the right on Twitter, which is a private company, to say, I don't want to hear from you? You can stand outside Twitter.
Oh, I see what
you
you're
can
saying.
stand on the street corner and you can whine and complain all you want. But as long as I'm in the domain of the private enterprise.
Okay. Because I got an answer for you.
Okay.
Because if Twitter says you can't do it because that's their rules. So if the president doesn't want to be on Twitter because he can't block people, then he has to get off Twitter.
But Twitter lets anybody block anyone for any reason.
Oh.
This isn't a Twitter rule. This is a court ruling that says Trump can't follow Twitter's rules.
Twitter's private policy is to...
Twitter's policy is anyone for any reason may block anybody.
Yeah, well, then I'd have to go against the court on that one. Except, and here's the caveat, and here's where
I'm sorry, people. I know this is a lot of different...
Here's where I'd be the lawyer. Mm-hmm. The president has taken his public site and directed people to his private account.
His public site on Twitter.
Right. And has,
but again, it's still inside a private company.
No, but that's different. I do think, I know that's splitting hairs.
I know.
But to me, that's different because, I'm a government official and Twitter's letting me be a part of it. Okay. If I'm the government who's using a private company, then the government supersedes the private company. Okay. And so since if the president if he wants to get rid of POTUS or he takes out, and it's not just Donald Trump. If any president wants to say
AOC in this case,
right. If they don't want to direct people from their government account, if they don't direct people from their government account to a personal account, I have no problem with them blocking people.
Even if the personal account is being used to communicate with people about policy.
That's okay, because that's your private account. And the president is still a private citizen. No matter who the president is, they're still a private citizen, which is why
those dualities.
Which is why you can be, impeached and for breaking the law. You're not necessarily given immunity. You're not above the law just because you're the president. I'm trying to stay consistent here. Okay?
I know.
And if
it's hard.
And if I'm not, let me know. But I'm trying to stay
difficult.
consistent. They are a private citizen. Okay. So if they want to be a private citizen on Twitter, then they can block people. But if you're going to use your government account to get people to follow you in a private thing, now you're blending that. And then all of a sudden, then you don't have that right, because then that's when it becomes a First Amendment issue. And I think that I'd like to hear from the listeners, but I really think that that's a pretty strong stance on my part. I mean, I like what I'm saying there. I'm trying to figure out where am I going to get attacked on it. Okay.
I know.
But if you as the president, you're not the president, you're just citizen president. You're the citizen of the United States who happens to be president, and you have a Twitter account and people find you there, they troll and they find you there. Okay. Then you have the right to block them because Twitter allows that.
Okay.
Okay. But if if you use
it seems like we're splitting hairs, Lance.
But you are, but that's what lawyers get paid for.
All right.
And that's what courts decide. Courts don't decide the big issue. They split hairs, on things. It's not a yes and no. It's like, they're splitting hairs with stuff all the time. That's what the court system's all about.
Interesting.
So there's where I am. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, let me know how you guys feel out there, whether you come down on my side or not. What do you think?
Right. Well, honestly,
you got to pick a side.
No, I know.
You can't be a fence sitter.
This is one, and this is why I wanted to do this, where I hope that people are really taking a look at the splitting of the hairs.
Sure.
Because I think it makes a huge difference. The implications, hopefully, that we've highlighted are there's a lot of potential stuff that can happen that we've taken this step.
What's our problem with the national media? They talk in the big picture and then they go, and that's what the story is.
Right.
And that's really not the story.
Yeah.
But that's what gets people to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yes, we are splitting hairs, but what hair are you splitting? Which side is your hair coming down on?
So
you agree with me, or do you have a different take?
This changed my mind a little bit here. I pulled up Twitter's terms of service. Okay. Because I thought, it's good. It would be good to know what are their rules.
That's what we're applying to this ruling.
Right. I mean, that's part of it. So Section 3 of Twitter's terms of service, which is entitled Content of the Services, the very first sentence, Lance, you are responsible for your use of the services and for any content that you provide, including compliance with applicable laws, rules, and regulations. You should only provide content that you are comfortable sharing with others. Any use or reliance on any content or materials posted via the services, i.e. Twitter, or obtained by you through the services is at your own risk.
Okay, so what are you saying? Break that down into English.
Yeah. The key here, I think, particularly in the first sentence where it mentions applicable laws, rules, and regulations. Twitter is saying we're deferring that you have the responsibility to comply with whatever your local laws are regarding whatever it is. So in this case, the court's ruling, I guess, is not really stepping out of line in the sense that Twitter's saying, we're deferring to their ruling, so the president has to follow these rules, because Twitter is saying we defer first to the government, then to our terms of service, which is similar to what you were saying before.
Well, we're about out of time, but to me, the big question is, I'm upset that if Twitter is going to allow this, why are they letting both of these people talk nasty?
Yes.
Because that's a violation of Twitter rules. And I know we're going to have to do a different show because we're quickly running out of time. But that's my big beef.
Yep.
I mean, I'll let you know that I think it's okay with the ruling, but my bigger issue is, okay, now Twitter, if we're going to follow the rules, follow your own rules. And that is everybody needs to clean up their language on Twitter because that's Twitter's rule.
Yes.
Well, I mean, but we don't have time to talk about that, but I just wanted to get that in there.
The last thing I had, Lance, and this I think is a quick question because I believe I know both of our answers. Based on the ruling about Trump not being allowed to block people, AOC then, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and every other elected official should be held to the exact same standards, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So no other elected official, regardless of level of government in these United States, should not be allowed to block anyone.
Right.
So the lawsuits that are now pending against AOC should be successful as a result of the court ruling on Trump.
And whether they mean it or not, a couple of them say that's why we're doing this.
Right.
We just want to make sure that the court's going to apply it equitably among groups. I think, and again, here's why you can't do this to me, okay? Your point though is how far down do you go? What if you're running for office?
Right. And we didn't even get to talk about that.
We can't talk about that, but that's
because now you haven't been elected.
Right. And I have an opinion on that, but that's, again, we have two questions we still have to answer. So that means that we might do this again in the near future.
Might have to do a follow-up. It's a lot. Hopefully it made some sense. It's very nuanced in this particular case. And I think
my point is most legal matters are.
Right. And the media tries to make it out to be really simple. And I guess one of the reasons that we covered this today is we didn't want you to believe it was as simple as they made it out to be. Because at first glance, it's real easy to say, this is great, and you start to look at it and it's like,
what are the
it's great as long as we're really careful about how we apply this to things. Let us know your thoughts. You can go to thestateofus.org and connect with us there. You can also find us on social media at TrueChat.org, at TrueChat.org. Lance, we've challenged people to tune in. Mm-hmm. They can now go to thestateofus.org, right?
Mm-hmm. I like
and they
that.
can see every way to listen there, but a few of them are what?
Oh, we've got Stitcher. We got the Biggie Apple podcast. Yeah. And we have my personal favorite, Spotify. And I never knew what they look like.
And now you got to see
I went to the stateofus.org and I saw what the emblems are.
Yep.
So if I ever listen that way, I'll be able to do that. But I still have a regular phone. Well, I don't even have a regular phone. I mean, regular phone.
I was going to say.
To me, a regular phone would be a landline phone. That's a regular phone. Oh. I have a flip phone.
Yeah.
It's a new phone for my lifetime. I'm used to everything being hooked into the wall.
It's relative, right?
On a line, yeah. This is a free-flowing phone. It goes with me wherever I go.
Free-flowing.
Yep.
For The State of Us on True Chat in Urbana, I'm Justin T. Weller.
And I'm Lance Jackson.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change.